The rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of Morrison and Associates' conference room, turning downtown San Francisco into an impressionist painting of bleeding lights and broken promises. I pressed the brass key in my palm until its teeth bit into my skin, the key to a bedroom that hadn't been mine for 15 years, in a house where I'd never truly existed. Across the mahogany table, my parents sat flanked by my sister Ashley, their bodies forming a wall of entitlement, the same formation they'd held at every family photo where I stood slightly apart, the composition always feeling complete without me. "Sarah, sweetheart," my mother began, sliding a manila folder across the table with the practiced precision of someone dealing cards in a rigged game. "We've had these papers drawn up. It's really quite simple." The folder landed in front of me with a soft thud that echoed like a judge's gavel. Inside, deed transfer documents for my house. My house, the glass and steel sanctuary in Hillsborough I'd bought with blood money from 70-hour weeks and 3 years of ramen dinners while building my startup. "Ashley needs stability right now," my father added, his voice carrying that particular tone of reasonableness that had gaslit me through decades, the same voice that explained why my college fund went to Ashley's pageant career, why my graduation was less important than her divorce proceedings, why my achievements were always footnotes to her headlines. "You're successful, Sarah. You can buy another house. Family helps family." Ashley shifted in her chair, one hand resting on her supposedly pregnant belly, with the theatrical precision of someone who'd practiced the gesture in mirrors. Her engagement ring, the third one in 5 years, caught the light like a warning flare. "It's just temporary," she said, her voice honeyed with false vulnerability. "Until I get back on my feet after Marcus abandoned me." Abandoned. The word hung in the air like incense at a funeral for truth. My father's cologne, Tom Ford Noir, the same scent from every missed science fair and forgotten birthday, mixed with the leather and rain to create an olfactory map of betrayal. I could taste copper in my mouth, either from biting my tongue or from the blood the brass key had drawn from my palm. 3 weeks ago, I said, my voice steady as a surgeon's hand, "you called me crying about Ashley's emergency, said she was pregnant, alone, desperate." I looked at each of them in turn, memorizing their faces like evidence photos. "This is your solution? Stealing my house?" "It's not stealing," my mother's voice sharpened, the maternal mask slipping to reveal the calculating realtor beneath. "It's what families do. We've always shared resources." Shared. Like how they'd shared the news of my startup success by asking for a loan they never intended to repay. Like how they'd shared my childhood room with Ashley the moment I left for college, packing my things in boxes labeled storage without asking if I wanted anything. I studied the documents again, noting the date. They'd been prepared 2 weeks ago, before the tearful phone call, before the emergency, before the performance of Family Crisis. This wasn't desperation, it was premeditation. "You have 48 hours to think about it," my father said, already standing, already dismissing me, like a junior employee who'd taken enough executive time. "But really, Sarah, what choice do you have? Family is family." Ashley stood too, swaying slightly as if the pregnancy made her delicate, though I'd seen her Instagram posts from wine tastings in Napa just last week. Posts she'd forgotten I could see. They filed out, leaving me alone with the documents and the sound of rain that suddenly seemed less like weather and more like applause for their performance. I sat there for another moment, feeling the weight of the brass key in my hand, this artifact of a home that had never wanted me. But they didn't know about the recording app on my phone, running silently since I'd entered the room. They didn't know about Marcus calling me 2 days ago, his voice broken but determined, saying, "Sarah, I need to tell you what Ashley's really doing." They didn't know about the prenuptial agreement Ashley had hidden, the one that would have protected her assets if she'd stayed married just 2 more months. Most importantly, they didn't know that the invisible daughter they'd trained to disappear had learned to watch from the shadows. And shadows, I'd discovered, were the perfect place to plan a revolution. I stood, slipped the brass key into my pocket, and walked toward the door. Behind me, the rain continued its assault on the windows, but ahead lay something far more destructive than any storm: the truth. And I was about to make it rain. The 45-minute drive from downtown to my house in Hillsborough gave me time to map the geography of our family dysfunction. Every exit on the 101 marked another milestone of invisibility. Millbrae, where Ashley had her sweet 16 at the Westin while I spent mine taking the S8. San Mateo, where my parents had their real estate office, the walls covered in Ashley's glamour shots, but not one photo of my Stanford graduation. By the time I pulled into my driveway, the rain had softened to a drizzle, and the evening light made my house glow like an ember against the hillside. 3,000 square feet of vindication with walls of glass that refused to hide anything. Architectural Digest had called it a transparent testament to success. My parents had called it excessive for a single woman. I poured myself a glass of wine, a proper Bordeaux, not the grocery store, barefoot Moscato. Ashley considered sophisticated and spread out the last 15 years like evidence on my kitchen island. The pattern was as clear as the spreadsheet I'd built to track it. Age 16, my $50,000 college fund evaporated overnight. Ashley's pageant coach says she could win Miss California Teen, Mom had explained, as if that justified grand larceny. "You're smart, Sarah. You'll get scholarships." And I did. Full ride to Stanford, plus 3 jobs to cover what scholarships didn't. Age 21, my graduation dinner, canceled 2 hours before because Ashley had been devastated by her first divorce. I ate takeout alone in my dorm room, still wearing the dress I'd bought specially, while they held Ashley's hand through her trauma at the St. Regis. Age 28, the night my startup got its Series A funding, $12 million that would eventually lead to the exit. My parents were in court supporting Ashley through divorce number 2. Their text, "Congrats on your little project. Ashley really needs us right now." Little project. That little project sold for $3.2 million after taxes. I pulled up the photos from the closing day when I bought this house. In them, I'm holding the keys, crying with joy, finally having something that couldn't be redirected to Ashley, couldn't be repurposed for her needs, couldn't be erased, but they were trying to erase it anyway. My phone buzzed. "Marcus. Sarah, I'm sending you everything. Check your email." The attachments loaded like Christmas morning in hell. Screenshots of text messages between Ashley and someone named Ryan. "Once we get Sarah's house, we can flip it. She's too emotional about family to fight back." Bank statements showing $400,000 in hidden accounts under variations of Ashley's name. And then the crown jewel, medical records from Bay Area Fertility Clinic, not for treatment. For documentation that she was definitively not pregnant, dated a week before she'd told our parents about her condition. I thought about our grandmother, dead 5 years now, who'd always seen through the favoritism. "You're the strong one," she'd told me at her last Christmas, pressing a small wrapped box into my hand when my parents weren't looking. Inside was the brass key. "I took this when they changed the locks without telling you. Keep it. Remember that locked doors sometimes protect the people outside them, not inside." She'd left me her engagement ring in her will, or so I'd thought. It had mysteriously vanished, resurfacing on Ashley's finger 6 months later as a family heirloom she'd always promised me. The rain picked up again, drumming against the glass walls like an accusation. In the reflection, I saw myself at 32, successful alone, still carrying a key to a room that wasn't mine in a house that had never been home. I opened my laptop and started a new document. At the top, I typed, "The audit." If my family wanted to treat relationships like transactions, I'd show them the books. Every redirected dollar, every stolen moment, every erased achievement. The CFO in me calculated the compound interest on pain. But this wasn't about money. It was about the moment, 3 weeks from now, when they'd realize the daughter they'd made invisible had been watching all along. That every dismissal had been data, every slight a lesson in strategic planning, every betrayal a tutorial in protecting assets. I picked up the brass key, felt its familiar weight. Tomorrow I'd meet with Diana, my lawyer, and the only person who'd attended my graduation dinner. We'd begin building a case that would make their little property grab look like what it was. A crime syndicate masquerading as a family. My phone lit up with another text, this time from Ashley. "Hope you're not overthinking things. It's really what's best for everyone." I screenshotted it, added it to the folder labeled Evidence, and poured another glass of wine. Outside, San Francisco glittered in the distance like a jury of lights, waiting to hear testimony. "You're right, Ashley," I said to the empty room. "Someone's definitely not overthinking things." But it wasn't me. The parking garage beneath Diana's law firm building carried that particular cocktail of rubber and exhaust that always reminded me of endings and beginnings. I stood by my Tesla, phone in hand, Marcus's contact information glowing on the screen like a door to another dimension. "I'm in," I said when he answered on the first ring. "Send me everything." "Sarah, thank God." His voice cracked with relief and something else. Vindication. "I've been documenting everything for months, but no one would believe me. Your family made me look like the villain." Within minutes, my phone became a cascade of evidence. Videos of Ashley at bars with someone definitely not Marcus, dated during her supposed morning sickness phase. Credit card statements showing purchases at Saks while she claimed poverty. And then, the masterpiece, a recorded phone call where she laughed about playing the pregnancy card with someone named Ryan. "There's more," Marcus said. "Ryan isn't just some guy. He's done this before, 3 times, each time with women who had family money." I sat in my car as the pieces clicked together like a combination lock opening. This wasn't just Ashley being Ashley. This was professional. My phone rang. Uncle James. "Sarah, I heard what they're trying to pull." His voice carried 40 years of exhaustion with his younger brother's choices. "Can you meet me? There's something you need to see. Something about your grandmother's will." 2 hours later, I sat in James's Palo Alto study, surrounded by the kind of old money quiet that came from inherited furniture and earned wisdom. He handed me a folder that felt heavier than its physical weight. "Your grandmother's original will," he said, "before your parents had it, adjusted." The document was a revelation written in legalese, a $500,000 education trust specifically for me, to ensure Sarah receives the opportunities her brilliant mind deserves. Gone, absorbed into the family estate that somehow only ever flowed toward Ashley. "The statute of limitations has passed for legal action," James said, "but moral crimes don't expire." I photographed every page, my hands steady, despite the rage building in my chest, like a symphony reaching crescendo. "There's something else," James continued. He pulled out his phone, showed me a text thread with my father from 6 months ago. "They've been planning this house grab since your startup sale was announced. Look at the date stamps. Before Ashley's crisis, before the pregnancy, before Marcus abandoned her." The premeditation tasted metallic, like blood from a bitten tongue. That evening, I scheduled a family dinner at my parents' house for Sunday. "I'll bring the papers," I texted my mother, "signed and ready." Her response was immediate. "I knew you'd do the right thing. Family first." The heart emoji looked like a target. I met Diana at her office that night. She'd stayed late, understanding this was more than legal work. It was an exorcism. "They're not just trying to take your house," she said, reviewing everything. "These conservatorship papers hidden in the transfer documents? They're trying to gain control of all your assets. This is financial abuse, Sarah." "Then we make it criminal," I said. Diana smiled, the kind of expression sharks probably have when they smell blood. "I know just the forensic accountant, and Marcus, he's willing to testify. We're building something here." I stood at Diana's window, looking out at the city, feeling the brass key in my pocket. "You know what the real crime is," I said. "They genuinely believe I'll roll over, that 32 years of training me to be invisible means I'll stay that way." "What changed?" Diana asked. I thought about it, rolling the key between my fingers. I realized something. They didn't make me invisible. They made me a ghost, and ghosts can walk through walls, see everything, be everywhere. I turned to face her. "They taught me to haunt them. They just didn't know it yet." My phone buzzed. The private investigator I'd hired 3 days ago. Yes, before that conference room ambush, because I'd learned to see their patterns like weather formations. "Your sister is meeting someone tonight. Same guy from the fertility clinic photos. Want me to follow?" "Document everything," I replied. Diana started pulling law books, precedents, cases of financial abuse, and family fraud. "When do you want to move?" "Sunday dinner," I said. "They want me to sign papers. I'll bring papers, just not the ones they're expecting." As I left Diana's office, I stopped at the door. "Diana, what do you call it when someone spends their whole life being erased, then suddenly appears?" She looked up from her legal pad. "Justice?" "I was thinking more like a magic trick," I said. "Now you don't see me. Now you do. Now you're fucked." The brass key caught the light as I walked to the elevator, winking like it was in on the joke. Sunday was in 4 days. They thought they were directing a tragedy where I played the victim. They didn't know I'd rewritten the script, and in my version, the ghost gets the last word. Friday night, 11:47 p.m. I stood in my childhood home, the brass key still warm from opening the door that shouldn't have worked but did. They'd never bothered to change this lock. the side entrance to the mudroom, the one they forgot existed, just like they forgot I existed. The house smelled exactly the same. My mother's Jo Malone candles failing to mask the underlying scent of disappointment and pledge furniture polish. I moved through the darkness with the muscle memory of 1,000 midnight snack runs, avoiding the creaky third stair, the loose floorboard by the grandfather clock. I was headed for my father's study when I heard it. Voices from upstairs. Ashley's room, my former room. She's so pathetic, she'll definitely sign. Ashley's voice, slurred with wine and confidence. She still keeps that stupid key like the house matters. A male voice, must be Ryan, laughed low and predatory. Your parents are geniuses. Once you get the house, flip it. That's $4 million easy. Split between us after my cut. You're set. Mom says we can probably get her company shares too, if we play the mental health angle right. She's always been the troubled one. I pressed record on my phone, blessing the iPhone's ability to capture audio through walls, through lies, through years of gaslighting. The pregnancy thing was brilliant, Ryan continued. You should have seen Marcus's face when you told him. Please, Marcus was easy. It's Sarah who's always been the problem. Too smart for her own good, but also too emotional about family. She'll cave, she always does. The sound of movement, bodies shifting. I needed to leave but couldn't, frozen by the fascination of hearing my life narrated by someone who'd never bothered to live it alongside me. What if she doesn't sign? Ryan asked. Then we go with Plan B, the conservatorship. Mom already has a psychiatrist lined up who'll say whatever we need. Depression, anxiety, inability to make sound financial decisions. I mean, who buys a $3 million house to live in alone? That's clearly unstable behavior. My hand tightened on the phone. The brass key in my pocket felt like it was burning. More movement. The distinct sound of a wine bottle hitting the nightstand. I used the cover of noise to slip back through the house, but as I reached the mudroom, my sleeve caught the edge of a picture frame, sending it tilting, not falling, just tilting. I froze, held my breath, counted to 30. No footsteps, no investigation. But the next morning, Saturday, Ashley texted, "Were you at Mom and Dad's last night? Thought I saw your car." My response came after careful calculation. Was at a work dinner in the city until midnight. Why? No reason, just thought I heard something. Probably the wind. The wind, right. An hour later, my mother called, her voice dripping with manufactured concern. Honey, Ashley mentioned you've seemed stressed lately. Maybe you should talk to someone? We know a wonderful psychiatrist, Dr. Brennan. He specializes in helping successful women who might be overwhelmed by their responsibilities. Dr. Brennan, I Googled him while she talked. 3 malpractice suits, all settled out of court, specialized in conservatorship evaluations. That's so thoughtful, Mom, I said, my voice steady as a flat line. Actually, I've been seeing someone for months, Dr. Jennifer Chen at Stanford. She says I'm the most mentally healthy person she's treating. Silence, then, oh, well, if you ever need a second opinion, I'll let you know. I hung up and immediately called Diana. They're escalating. Can you get me an emergency psychiatric evaluation? Today, I want papers showing I'm mentally competent before they can file anything. On it. Also, your PI sent over last night's surveillance. The photos loaded on my laptop. Ashley and Ryan entering a hotel. Ryan's criminal record. 2 divorces, both women left financially ruined. 1 attempted fraud charge that didn't stick. I forwarded everything to Marcus, then created alibi documentation for last night. Credit card receipt from a restaurant in the city. Thank God for delayed post dates on company cards. Texts with colleagues about the fictional dinner. Even an Uber receipt I photoshopped with Diana's help. They're building a case, Diana warned. Brennan and Associates just filed a preliminary inquiry about your assets. They're moving fast. Let them, I said, looking at the wall of windows in my house, at the transparency I'd chosen instead of the shadows they'd forced me into. The faster they move, the more mistakes they make. My phone buzzed. Security notification from my house's smart doorbell. A process server, papers in hand. I answered the door with a smile, accepted the papers with grace, even offered him water for the road. Inside were exactly what I expected. Petition for psychiatric evaluation, temporary financial conservatorship pending review, and, the cherry on top, a restraining order request claiming I'd been harassing Ashley about her pregnancy. I photographed every page, sent them to Diana, then did something they wouldn't expect. I called Ashley directly. "Hey sis," I said, my voice bright as a fresh wound. "Just wanted to say I'm really thinking about Sunday. Family is so important, isn't it?" "Oh, Sarah," she practically purred. "I knew you'd come around. You've always been the smart one." "Funny you should say that," I replied. "I've been documenting just how smart." "See you Sunday." I hung up before she could respond, then turned off my phone. Let her wonder, let her worry, let her realize, maybe for the first time, that the sister she'd written off as weak had just declared war. And I'd already won the first battle. Saturday afternoon, I sat with Uncle James in his Los Altos study. The California sun streaming through windows that had witnessed 40 years of family secrets. He'd pulled out a box I'd never seen before. Weathered cardboard marked Margaret's Things in my grandmother's careful script. "Before we go through this," he said, "I need you to understand something. The night before your grandmother died, she called me, said she'd made a terrible mistake, trusting your parents with her will. Inside the box, photographs, letters, and documents that reconstructed a crime I'd never known had been committed. The first photo stopped my heart. Me at 17, holding my MIT acceptance letter, my grandmother beside me, both of us crying with joy. I'd forgotten this moment existed, erased it when MIT became impossible, when state school became reality, when dreams became things other people could afford. "She mortgaged her house," James said quietly, "to pay for your MIT education, had it all arranged. Then your parents convinced her to put the money in a family trust they'd manage. The next document, a trust worth $500,000, established for Sarah Chen's education and future, dated 3 months before my high school graduation. The following document, trust dissolution papers, signed by my parents as executors, the money redistributed for family expenses, which James showed me through bank records, meant Ashley's pageant career, Ashley's first wedding, Ashley's failed boutique, Ashley's everything. Your grandmother found out 2 weeks before she died," James said. "She was going to confront them. Then the stroke happened." I held the brass key in my hand, remembering her pressing it into my palm that last Christmas. "Keep it," she'd said. "Remember that locked doors sometimes protect the people outside them, not inside." She'd known and couldn't save me. So she gave me a symbol instead, a reminder that being locked out might be salvation. My phone rang. Marcus. "Sarah, I need to tell you something else about Ryan." I hired my own investigator. He's done this 3 times before, but there's more. His last victim, she killed herself after losing everything. The words hit like cold water, sobering me from my revenge fantasy into something sharper, more purposeful. This wasn't just about my family's betrayal anymore. This was about stopping a predator. "Send me everything," I said. That evening, I stood in my Hillsborough house, watching the sunset paint the bay in shades of gold and blood. The city below sparkled like a circuit board, all connections and currents, systems and patterns. Diana arrived with a forensic accountant named William, 60-something, gray-bearded, looked like Santa Claus if Santa specialized in destroying financial fraud. "Your parents have been running a long con," William said, spreading papers across my dining table. "Every family member who died, every inheritance, every trust, it all got redirected to Ashley. You weren't the only victim, just the longest-running one." The pattern was clear. Aunt Patricia's life insurance, Cousin Michael's accident settlement, he was a minor, they were trustees, Great-Uncle George's estate. All of it funneled, legally but unethically, toward Ashley's infinite needs. But here's the beautiful thing. William smiled, and it wasn't a kind expression. They've been sloppy, tax evasion, fraud, paper trails. They thought were invisible. Give me 48 hours, and I'll have enough for the IRS to rain hell. I walked to my window wall, pressed my palm against the glass. Below, the world went about its Saturday evening, unaware that in this house, a ghost was learning to become a storm. Diana pulled out her laptop. "I've drawn up the real papers for Sunday. Restraining orders, fraud charges, demand for restoration of stolen funds." "But Sarah, once we do this, there's no going back. They'll be criminally charged. Ashley could go to prison. Your parents will lose everything." I thought about 17-year-old me, crying in my room the night MIT became impossible. 21-year-old me, eating graduation dinner alone. 28-year-old me, watching my startup succeed while my family was too busy with Ashley's drama to notice. Then I thought about that other woman, Ryan's last victim, who'd chosen death over the devastation he'd caused. "They made their choices," I said, turning back to Diana and William. "Every birthday they forgot, every achievement they ignored, every dollar they stole, those were all choices. Now I'm making mine." I pulled out the brass key, walked to my fireplace. "You know what? I'm done carrying this." But I didn't throw it in the fire. Instead, I called my friend who was a jewelry designer. "Can you melt this down and remake it into something else? By tomorrow?" "Sure, but into what?" I thought about it, then smiled. "A phoenix, small enough to wear as a pendant. I want to carry transformation, not captivity." As Diana and William worked through the night, building our case, I stood on my deck, breathing in the Bay Area evening, eucalyptus and ocean, fog and possibility. My phone lit up with a text from Ashley. "Can't wait for tomorrow. It'll be just like old times, all of us together." "No," I said to the night, to the ghost of the girl I'd been, to the woman I was becoming. "It'll be nothing like old times." Because old times were over. And new times? They were about to begin with a bang that would echo through every family gathering they'd ever excluded me from. The brass key would die tomorrow. But what would rise from its ashes would be magnificent. Sunday morning, 8 a.m. My phone exploded with notifications. Ashley had sent our parents' photos, me with Marcus at a coffee shop, Diana's law firm building in the background. The family group chat I was rarely included in suddenly included me very much. Mom, Sarah, what is this? Meeting with Marcus behind Ashley's back? Dad, we're disappointed, betraying your own sister. Ashley, I can't believe you'd conspire with the man who abandoned me and our baby. I typed back carefully, each word a chess move. I was trying to convince Marcus to support his child. You know, being the responsible one, as always. Silence for 3 minutes, then Mom. We'll discuss this at dinner. Perfect. They were rattled. Rattled people make mistakes. I arrived at my parents' house 2 hours early, telling them I wanted to help with dinner prep. Really, I wanted to place Diana's recording devices. All legal in California when you're part of the conversation and feel threatened. The house felt different in daylight, less nostalgic, more like a crime scene I was finally processing. Every family photo on the walls showed the same composition. Parents centered, Ashley glowing, me slightly out of focus, partially out of frame, like someone had been walking past when the photo was taken. You're early, my mother said, not quite hiding her suspicion. Just wanted to help, I said, noting how she'd already set the dining room for 5. Who's the 5th? Oh, our lawyer, Mr. Brennan, for convenience, to notarize the papers. Mr. Brennan, the psychiatrist's brother. How cozy. And I invited a friend for moral support, Ashley announced, entering with Ryan, who she introduced as someone who's been helping me through this difficult time. Ryan looked exactly like his photos, conventionally handsome in that calculated way of men who weaponize their cheekbones. He shook my hand, and his grip was just a little too firm, held just a little too long, like he was trying to establish dominance. I've heard so much about you, he said, smiling with too many teeth. Funny, I replied. I've heard nothing about you. Ashley laughed, brittle as winter branches. Sarah's always been the suspicious one in the family. Right, Mom? She's just careful, my mother said, but her tone suggested careful was code for difficult. We moved through dinner prep like actors who'd forgotten their marks. Ashley kept touching her belly, Ryan kept touching Ashley's shoulders, my parents kept touching the folder of papers on the side table. Then the doorbell rang. I'll get it, I said, knowing who it would be. Uncle James stood at the door, dignified in his navy suit, holding a bottle of wine that cost more than Ashley's monthly shopping budget. James, my father's voice cracked, what are you doing here? I heard we were having a family dinner about family business, James said, entering without invitation. Thought family should be included. The tension in the room shifted, became electric. Ashley's hand moved to her phone. Ryan's jaw tightened. My parents exchanged looks that spoke in 30 years of marriage code. We weren't expecting, my mother began. No, I imagine you weren't, James said, settling into the chair at the head of the table, the one my father usually claimed. Please don't let me interrupt. I believe Sarah was about to sign some papers. Dinner was served, my mother's traditional pot roast, the meal she made for important occasions. Though I noticed she'd forgotten I didn't eat red meat, had been vegetarian for 5 years. Another invisible detail about an invisible daughter. So, Mr. Brennan began, his voice oily with false concern. We've drafted papers that protect everyone's interests. Whose interests? James interrupted. Because I'm looking at this family, and I'm seeing only one person whose interests have never been protected. Uncle James, Ashley said, her voice pitched to vulnerable. You don't understand the situation. I'm pregnant, alone. Are you? James pulled out his phone. Because that's interesting. Your Instagram shows you wine tasting in Napa last Tuesday. Ashley went pale. Ryan shifted forward. Those were old photos she posted. Date stamped with location tags, I added helpfully. Technology's amazing, isn't it? Ryan had been drinking steadily, and the wine was loosening his tongue. Look, once Ashley gets the house settled. Once you what? I asked, pulling out the folder Diana had prepared. Once you flip my house for $4 million? Once you take your cut, like you did with Jennifer Walsh? Or Patricia Kumar? Or should we talk about Rebecca Martinez? The name hit like a bomb. Ryan went white. You don't know what you're talking about. Rebecca Martinez, I continued, voice steady as a heartbeat monitor, married you 2 years ago. You convinced her to sign over her inherited house to protect it from taxes. She lost everything, and then she— Shut up, Ryan snarled, mask fully off now. She killed herself, James finished. 6 months ago, left a note naming you. The room erupted. Ashley screaming that we were lying. My parents demanding to know what was happening. Ryan standing trying to leave. Sit down, I said, and my voice carried 32 years of suppressed authority. I'm not done. I placed the folder on the table, opened it like a coffin lid. Before I sign anything, I said, there's something everyone needs to see. Ashley's hand was on her phone, thumb moving, but it was already too late. The show was about to begin. I spread the documents across the dinner table like tarot cards, each one revealing a different future than the one my family had planned. Document 1, I said, pulling out the medical records. Ashley's fertility clinic results. Fascinating reading, especially this part where it says, patient confirmed not pregnant, dated 2 weeks ago. Ashley's face cycled through emotions like a slot machine. Those are fake. You're trying to destroy me because you're jealous. Document 2. I laid out Ryan's marriage certificates. Ryan Thompson married 3 times. Each wife mysteriously needed to sign over property. Each one left bankrupt. Ryan stood to leave. Uncle James, still surprisingly spry at 70, blocked the door. I think we should all stay for dessert. Document 3. The one that made my parents go pale. Brennan and Associates billing records. You've been planning this conservatorship for 6 months. Before Ashley's emergency. Before Marcus left. This shows premeditation for financial elder abuse. You're sick, Sarah, my father said, but his voice lacked conviction. This paranoia proves you need help. Does it? I pulled out my phone, hit play on the recording from Friday night. Ashley's voice filled the room. She's so pathetic, she'll definitely sign. She still keeps that stupid key like the house matters. Then Ryan, your parents are geniuses. Once you get the house, flip it. That's $4 million easy. And the killing blow, Ashley again. Mom says we can probably get her company shares too if we play the mental health angle right. The room went silent except for the grandfather clock ticking, counting down to the explosion. You recorded us? Ashley shrieked. That's illegal. Actually, Diana said, entering the room with perfect timing, it's not. California is a 2-party consent state for private conversations, but these were recorded from outside the room in a common area of the family home where Sarah has historical access rights. Plus, the conversation itself documented conspiracy to commit fraud, which eliminates expectation of privacy. Behind Diana, a court officer in uniform. Mr. and Mrs. Chen, Diana continued, you're being served with restraining orders for attempted financial abuse, fraud, and conspiracy. The documents are all here. My mother found her voice. You can't prove anything. It's our word against... Mine? Marcus entered, followed by his lawyer. Because I've got 3 years of documentation about Ashley's lies, including this. He held up a tablet showing security footage. Ashley at an ATM, withdrawing cash from accounts she'd claimed were empty, dated during their marriage when she was supposedly destitute. But the best part, Marcus continued, is this woman. A pregnant woman entered, actually pregnant, visibly so. This is my sister, Carmen, Marcus said. Ashley stole her ID and used it at the fertility clinic. Identity theft is a federal crime. Ashley's mask finally shattered completely. You set me up, all of you. No, I said quietly. You set yourself up. Every lie, every manipulation, every cruel joke about the invisible sister who would never fight back. You taught me to be invisible, but invisible people see everything. The IRS has been notified about the offshore accounts, Diana added. They're very interested in the $400,000 that appears to have been hidden from your divorce proceedings, Ashley. Ryan made another break for the door. The court officer stopped him. Mr. Thompson, you're under arrest for fraud. Your ex-wife Jennifer Walsh filed charges yesterday after Ms. Chen contacted her. As Ryan was cuffed, Ashley turned on our parents. This was your idea. You said she was weak. You said she'd never fight back. We did this for you, my mother screamed back. You're the one who always needed help. Because you made me this way, Ashley shouted. You never made me work for anything. You gave me everything except the ability to earn it myself. They turned on each other like rats in a flooding ship, each revealing more crimes, more lies, more betrayals. The court officer was recording everything. I touched the phoenix pendant at my throat. My jeweler friend had worked magic overnight, transforming the brass key into something beautiful, something that rose from ashes. Here's what's going to happen, I said, my voice cutting through their chaos. Option 1, you sign these documents relinquishing any claim to my assets, return the stolen trust money with interest, and publicly apologize. Option 2, criminal prosecution, IRS investigation, and every person you've ever done business with knows what you really are. My father slumped in his chair, aging a decade in a minute. How did we get here? One ignored birthday at a time, I said. One stolen opportunity at a time, one erasure at a time. My phone buzzed, a notification from the San Francisco Chronicle. The email I'd scheduled was about to send to my family. You might want to check your phones, I said, all of you right now. They pulled out their devices in unison, like puppets on the same string. The subject line read, Exclusive, Bay Area Tech Founder. Exposes family financial fraud scheme. Story goes live in 10 minutes unless... You wouldn't, my mother whispered. I smiled, and for the first time in my life, I knew exactly what power felt like. The email notification hung in the air like a guillotine blade. 9 minutes and counting. You're bluffing, Ashley said, but her voice shook like autumn leaves. I pulled up the Chronicle article on my laptop, turned the screen toward them. The draft was complete. How a Bay Area family attempted to steal their daughter's $3 million home. Complete with recordings, legally obtained, documents, and a statement from me about financial abuse in wealthy families. 8 minutes, I said. My father's phone rang. His business partner. Robert, what the hell is this email about a Chronicle article? Is this real? He declined the call. Then another came. and another. 7 minutes. Please, my mother said, and for the first time in my life, I heard real fear in her voice. The family name. We'll survive this, I interrupted. Your reputation won't, but I'm offering you a choice. Diana placed new documents on the table. Sign these, relinquish all claims to Sarah's assets. Return the $400,000 from the grandmother's trust with interest. That's $587,000 in today's dollars. Provide a written apology that we'll keep private unless you violate these terms. 6 minutes. Ashley exploded. This was your idea. She turned on our parents. You said she was weak. You promised this would work. We did this for you, my father roared back, finally showing his true face. You're 34 years old, and you've never held a job, never paid a bill, never done anything but consume. Because you never taught me how to do anything else, Ashley screamed. You made me this way. Every time I failed, you cushioned it. Every time I needed something, you stole it from Sarah to give to me. You created a monster, and now you're mad that I'm monstrous? The truth hung in the air like smoke from a finally acknowledged fire. 5 minutes. Ryan, still in cuffs, decided to save himself. I have recordings too. Ashley approached me. She found my history online, thought we could work together. She's done this before, smaller scales, but… Shut up, Ashley lunged at him. The court officer restrained her. 4 minutes. My mother was crying now, real tears, not the performed ones I'd seen so many times. Sarah, please, we're your parents. No, I said, surprising myself with how calm I felt. Parents protect all their children. Parents see all their children. Parents love equally. You were Ashley's parents. I was just someone who lived in your house until I didn't. 3 minutes. Uncle James spoke up. Sign the papers, Robert. For once in your life, do the right thing. My father's hands shook as he reached for the pen. If we sign, the article doesn't run. If you sign and transfer the money within 48 hours, Diana confirmed. Otherwise, it runs anyway. 2 minutes. My father signed. My mother followed, tears streaming. Ashley refused, screaming about betrayal, about unfairness, about how I'd ruined her life. Ashley, I said, you don't have to sign. You're not on the property deed anyway. But the IRS warrant for your arrest on tax evasion? That's happening regardless. As if on cue, 2 IRS agents entered. Diana had coordinated everything perfectly. Ashley Chen, you're under arrest for tax evasion and fraud. As they cuffed her, she stared at me with pure hatred. You destroyed our family. No, I said, touching the phoenix pendant. I revealed it. There's a difference. 1 minute. I picked up my phone, deleted the scheduled email with a theatrical swipe. Killed it with 30 seconds to spare. You're welcome. Ryan was led out first, then Ashley, both heading to federal processing. My parents sat at their dinner table, surrounded by the wreckage of their schemes, looking older than I'd ever seen them. The house you wanted so badly, I said, standing to leave. I'm donating it to charity. It's becoming a transition home for people escaping financial abuse. It'll be called the Key Foundation. I pulled the phoenix pendant from my neck, set it on the table. I don't need this anymore either. The key is dead. The door is closed. We're done. As I walked toward the door, my mother called out, Sarah, wait. I stopped but didn't turn. We never saw you, really saw you, did we? Now I turned, memorizing their faces one last time. No, you didn't. But I saw myself, that was enough. Uncle James followed me out, Diana too. Marcus and his sister had already left. As we stood in the driveway, the same place where I'd been dropped off after birth, brought home from college, ignored after every achievement, I felt something I hadn't expected: peace. You know what the best revenge is? I asked Diana. Success? No, I said, looking back at the house that had never been home. It's truth. Success they can dismiss. Truth? Truth is undeniable. We drove away in separate cars, but toward the same destination, a future where invisible daughters became visible women, where family was chosen, not assigned, where homes were built on foundation stronger than blood. Behind us, my parents sat in their perfect house, surrounded by photos of the daughter they'd loved and the daughter they'd lost, finally understanding the price of favoritism. It was a bill 32 years in the making, and it had finally come due. 3 months later, I stood in my Hillsborough home, not for long, as the donation paperwork was almost complete, watching the morning news. Ashley's arrest had made headlines, not because of my family, but because Ryan Thompson's other victims had come forward. 7 women in total, spanning 15 years. The FBI had taken over the case. Ashley got 18 months in federal prison for tax evasion and identity theft. The prosecution offered a deal if she testified against Ryan, who was looking at 20 years. She took it, of course. Survival instincts, even if they were the only instincts our parents had actually taught her. The doorbell rang. My father stood on my porch, looking like he'd aged a decade in 3 months. His real estate business had survived, but barely, losing 60% of their clients after word spread through Palo Alto's gossipy networks. I'm in therapy, he said without preamble. Real therapy, not the kind we tried to force on you. I let him stand there, didn't invite him in. And I'm learning about narcissistic family systems, golden children and scapegoats. How we created both of you to serve our needs instead of serving yours. He paused, swallowed hard. I'm sorry, not asking for forgiveness, just wanted you to know. Okay, I said, nothing more. Some bridges, once burned, weren't meant for rebuilding, just for acknowledging the ash. He left, and I returned to packing. The Key Foundation would open next month. I'd bought a smaller place in the city, something that felt like mine without the weight of vindication attached. Uncle James visited weekly now. We cooked dinner together. He taught me our grandmother's recipes, the ones my mother never bothered to pass down. Over butternut squash soup, he told me stories about my grandmother I'd never heard. She was like you, he said. Quiet but observant. Your parents mistook that for weakness. She never did. She saw you, Sarah. She always saw you. 6 months later, Diana called with news. Ashley's being released early. Good behavior. I was at the foundation reviewing applications from people seeking shelter from financial abuse. Okay. You're not worried? About what? She has no money, no assets, 3 years of probation, and a federal conviction on her record. She'll have to get a job, pay taxes, live in the real world. That's not revenge, Diana. That's just consequence. Ashley sent a letter a week later. No apology, just blame. I was cruel. I was jealous. I had destroyed her life. I filed it away with the others, evidence of a person who would never understand that she'd been drowning in privilege while I'd been swimming in neglect. 8 months post-reversal, something unexpected happened. My mother showed up at the foundation's opening ceremony. She stood in the back, didn't approach, just watched as I cut the ribbon. As I spoke about financial abuse, about invisible children, about the homes we build after the ones we're born into fail us. Afterward, she left a box with security. Inside, every report card, every science fair ribbon, every achievement certificate of mine she'd saved. Things I thought she'd thrown away. I kept them, her note said. Hidden, but kept. Some part of me knew I was failing you, even if I couldn't stop. These belong to you. They always did. I donated them to the Foundation's Resource Center, where they became part of a display about reclaiming identity after family trauma. Marcus sent updates occasionally. He'd remarried. Someone kind, he said. Someone real. His sister had her baby, named her Sarah. After the woman who showed us that truth is more powerful than tricks, he explained, Ryan Thompson was convicted on 12 counts of fraud. 25 years, no parole for 15. The judge cited the particular cruelty of targeting vulnerable women, seeking love and stability. Ashley wasn't mentioned in the trial, had been reduced to co-conspirator number 3 in the documents. A year to the day after the dinner, I got another call. This time from a grandmother in Texas, her voice shaking with tears and rage. My grandson, she said, his parents are trying to force him to sign over his inheritance. I read your story. Will you help? I looked around the foundation office at the 12 staff members we'd hired, at the wall of success stories, people who'd escaped, rebuilt, thrived. Yes, I said. We'll help. Diana poked her head in. That's the 15th call this week. Then we'd better expand, I said, pulling up architectural plans for foundation locations in Austin, Chicago, Miami. The Phoenix pendant sat in a frame on my desk, no longer worn but displayed. A reminder that sometimes the only way forward is through fire. That keys can become wings if you're brave enough to melt them down. My phone buzzed. An unknown number, a text. This is Ashley. I'm out. I'm working at Target. I see you on the news sometimes. I still hate you. But I also understand now. We were both victims, just different kinds. I didn't respond. Understanding isn't absolution. Awareness isn't apology. But it was a start. Not for us. That ship had sailed and sunk. But for her, maybe she'd build something real from her ashes. Maybe not. Either way, I had my own foundation to build. And every day, more invisible children called, ready to become visible, ready to rise. 1 year later, rain hammered against different windows. Not a law office this time, but the Key Foundation's San Francisco headquarters. I stood in our conference room, watching the same storm-blurred city lights, but everything else had changed. Across from me sat Michael Chen, no relation, 23, holding a brass key in his shaking hand. His parents had demanded he sign over his grandmother's inheritance, a modest house in Daly City worth $800,000, to pay for his brother's emergency legal fees. The brother who'd been arrested for the 3rd time, who'd already consumed Michael's college fund, his car savings, his entire childhood of being the responsible one. Let me guess, I said, settling into my chair with the kind of calm that only comes from surviving your own storm. They told you family helps family, that you're selfish for wanting to keep what your grandmother specifically left to you. His tears came fast. How did you know? Because predators use the same playbook. But here's what they don't know. So do survivors. I opened my laptop, pulled up our resource database. Lawyers, therapists, financial advisors, safe houses. An entire network built from the ashes of family betrayal. Your grandmother, I said, studying the will he'd brought. She saw you. really saw you. This inheritance isn't just money, it's her trying to protect you from beyond the grave. They said I'm breaking the family apart. No, you're breaking the cycle. Diana entered with our newest team member, a financial crimes prosecutor, who'd joined us after her own family tried to steal her identity for loans. As we built Michael's case, my phone lit up with notifications. The foundation story had gone viral again, this time on 60 Minutes. The segment title, When Family Becomes Finance, The Rise of Domestic Economic Abuse. 12 cities now had key foundation offices. 15 more were planned. We'd helped over 500 people escape financial abuse in our first year. The donation from my house had been multiplied by other donors who saw themselves in our mission. That evening was our annual Phoenix dinner, a gathering for survivors on the anniversary of their escape. 200 people filled the ballroom at the St. Regis, the same hotel where my parents had comforted Ashley through her first divorce, while I ate graduation dinner alone. I stood to give the keynote, looking out at faces that had all worn the same expression I'd once carried, the look of someone invisible finally being seen. They tried to take my house, I began, the words carrying different weight now. But they gave me something better. They gave me all of you. They gave me purpose. They gave me proof that invisible children grow up to be undeniable adults. Standing ovation, not for me, but for all of us. For everyone who'd been erased and refused to stay that way. After dinner, I walked to my car in the parking garage, the same one where I'd first called Marcus, where this revolution began. The rain had stopped, leaving the city washed and gleaming. My phone buzzed. Mom, I saw the 60 Minutes segment. Your grandmother would be proud. I'm proud, for whatever that's worth now. I sat in my car for a moment, considering, then typed back, "Thank you." Nothing more needed. Some relationships don't reconcile, they just find a place to rest. Driving home to my new place, smaller but entirely mine, I passed the exit for my parents' house, kept driving. That off-ramp led to the past, and I was headed firmly toward the future. My phone rang through the car speakers, another person needing help, another invisible child ready to be seen. Key Foundation, this is Sarah, I answered. Tell me your story. As they spoke about stolen inheritances, about favoritism, about being erased one family dinner at a time, I touched the Phoenix pendant on my rearview mirror. It caught the streetlights, throwing tiny rainbows across my dashboard. The brass key was dead. The Phoenix had risen, and every day, more of us spread our wings. The rain started again, gentler this time. I drove through it toward the Bay Bridge, toward the foundation, toward another midnight of building escape routes for invisible children. They'd tried to take my house. They'd ended up giving me a home, not in walls and windows, but in the hearts of hundreds who refused to be erased. And that's a deed no one can steal. My story had ended. But the foundation's story, that was just beginning, and somewhere tonight, another invisible child was holding a key, wondering if they'd ever escape the house that had never been home. Tomorrow they'd call us, and we'd answer. We always answered, because ghosts recognize ghosts, and phoenixes? We rise together. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt invisible in your own family, remember, your worth isn't determined by their blindness. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't destroying those who hurt us. It's building something beautiful from the ashes they left behind. Keep rising. On Refined Revenge, we believe every ghost deserves to become a phoenix.